The Ghost from Leningrad. Imagine the summer of 1941. The air already smells of thunder, of a war not yet officially declared, but its breath is felt by everyone from Brest to Moscow. The Red Army seems like an unbreakable colossus, and it has its scepter and orb, the KV-1 tank. For the Germans, it is a phantom, a ghost tank. Its armor is impervious to their guns. The panic sown by a few KV-1 tanks breaking through German lines is akin to mystical horror. But in the offices of the Kirov plant in Leningrad, where these steel monsters were born, there was no euphoria. The creators of the KV-1, geniuses in oil-stained overalls, could already see the future. And in that future, their brainchild was doomed. They knew war is a race in which today's champion becomes tomorrow's easy target. They looked at the blueprints and saw the day after tomorrow, a day when something even more terrible would appear on the battlefield. And they began to create. Their answer was not to be just an enhanced KV. No, it was to be a qualitative leap, a jump over an entire generation of machines. The birth of a new species, a breakthrough tank that would be years ahead of anything the industry of the Third Reich could offer. Its name, KV-3, Object 223. And its heart and soul was to be a gun capable of tearing any future opponent to shreds, the 107mm ES-6. This is not just a story about a tank. This is a story about a missed chance, a battle of ambitions against bureaucracy, the foresight of some and the fatal blindness of others. It is the story of how a single project could have changed the course of the war, saving thousands of lives. And it is a story that, alas, repeats itself again and again in different industries to this day. Part 1. Birth of Titan. The KV-3 concept. To understand the genius of the KV-3, one must understand the context. The KV-1 was, without a doubt, a masterpiece. Its appearance on the front in 41 was a shock to the Wehrmacht. German 37mm anti-tank guns, nicknamed door knockers by their soldiers, simply bounced off its armor. There are known cases of a single KV, one holding off an entire division for a day, receiving dozens of hits, but remaining operational. But the tank's creators, Joseph Kodin, his team of engineers, also saw the flaws. The KV-1 was slow, unreliable. Its transmission failed more often than from enemy fire. It was a raw diamond. The idea behind the KV-3 was to take this diamond and cut it, turning it into a flawless brilliant. So what was the KV-3? Armor. An impregnable fortress. The frontal hull armor was increased to 115, 120mm. For comparison, the serial KV-1 had 75mm, and the German PZ-4, the main medium tank at the time, had only 50. This meant that at a distance of half a kilometer, the KV-3 would have been invulnerable to any existing German anti-tank gun. Not a single weapon of the Wehrmacht in the summer of 41. Not the 37mm, not the 50mm, not even the 88mm anti-aircraft gun used as an anti-tank weapon could guarantee penetration of such armor at real battle ranges. It would have been invulnerable. Absolutely. Chassis and mobility. The price of power. The vehicle's weight soared to an incredible 65, 68 tons. To cope with this mass, the chassis was lengthened and a sixth road wheel was added. This made the tank more stable, but reduced its maneuverability. The engine was planned to be boosted to 850, 950 horsepower. Yes, the power-to-weight ratio remained low, about 13-14 HP/ton, but this was a breakthrough tank. Its task was not to dash across fields, but to methodically, inexorably, like an armored steamroller, crush the enemy's defenses, ignoring its fire. It was an elephant, not a cheetah. The new turret, thinking big. The turret was completely new, with a widened turret ring. This solved one of the main problems of the KV-1, cramped conditions. The crew of 5 had more space to work, which directly impacted efficiency. The turret acquired a more streamlined, conical shape, increasing the chance of ricochets. This was no longer just a steel box. It was a thoughtful design. But all of this, the armor, the chassis, the turret, was just a shell. The true soul of this Titan, its fearsome sword, was to be a gun that had no analogs in the world. Part 2. ZS-6, the sword that was never drawn. Vasily Gavrilovich Grabin, a brilliant artillery designer, a man whose guns became the bones and muscles of the Red Army. It was in his design bureau in Gorky that the wonder weapon was born, the 107mm tank gun ZS-6. Let me explain in simple terms why this gun was a technological marvel, a wonder of engineering. The killer shell. It fired a huge, heavy armor-piercing shell, the BR-420. Imagine a steel piece of a rail flying at the speed of sound. The shell's muzzle velocity was 840 meters per second. The energy of the impact was monstrous. Ahead of its time, armor penetration. At a distance of 500 meters, this shell guaranteed penetration of armor about 160 millimeters thick. At 1 kilometer, about 130 millimeters. This is data from 1941. Let's face it, which German tank in 41 had such armor? None. Only the front of the famous Tiger, which would appear on the front only at the end of 42, had 100 millimeters. This means the KV-3 with the ZS-6 could have destroyed Tigers even before they appeared. It saw the future and was ready for it. Rate of fire and ammunition. With such might, the gun remained relatively convenient. A crew of 2 in the turret, loader and gunner, could maintain a rate of fire of up to 5-6 rounds per minute. And the tank's ammunition stowage held 92 of these deadly shells. Grabin didn't just create a gun. He created a weapon of retribution, a weapon with a safety margin for years to come. He, like a prophet, foresaw the appearance of heavily armored targets. And his gun was the answer to the challenges that German designers were only preparing to throw down. On March 15, 1941, a fateful decree of the State Defense Committee was issued. Reading it sends chills down my spine. Obliged the Kirov plant to manufacture in 1941 500 KV-3 tanks. 500. This is not a pilot batch. This is already series production. The Azora plant received an order for the armor. Component suppliers began preparing parts. The project received the green light at the highest level. It would seem that's it. The steel fist of the Red Army is clenching. In the autumn of 41, spring of 42, the first battalions of KV-3s could have entered service. And then history would have gone according to a completely different script. But it was at this moment, at its very peak, that forces stronger than metal and engineering genius came into play. The forces of bureaucracy, conservatism, and fatal delusions. Part 3. The battle in the offices. Why was the project killed? Here we come to the most painful and tragic part of our story. Why was this promising, already approved project buried? Who was behind this decision? The main opponent was the Red Army's Auto-Armored Vehicle Directorate, ADU, led by General Yakov Nikolaevich Fedorenko. And his arguments, from the height of our present knowledge, seem strikingly short-sighted and erroneous. Argument 1. Excessive power. The ABEU believed that the 76mm F-32 and ZS-5 guns were more than enough to deal with all targets. German tanks of that time, PZ-3 and PZ-4, had armor from 15 to 50 millimeters. The 76mm shell took them out easily. Why then some 107mm full? It's a waste of funds, a complication of production. This is typical, if it ain't broke, don't fix it logic. They looked at the war of today, while Grabin and Koden were preparing for the war of tomorrow. Argument 2. Intelligence data. Intelligence reported. The Germans have no tanks with powerful armor. Why build a super KV to fight non-existent super tanks? This argument was based on facts, but these facts were momentary. The Germans were not fools. Upon learning of the KV-1 and T-34, they immediately launched their own programs to create heavy tanks. But our leadership, it seems, believed that the enemy would stop developing. Argument 3. Unreliability and high cost. The KV-1 was already a headache for driver mechanics. Its transmission was a weak point. Instead of solving these problems in the new, more advanced chassis of the KV-3, the ABTU proposed going the opposite way, simplifying and cheapening the current KV-1. The logic was in mass production. Better 10 raw, but simple tanks than one perfect, but complex one. In the face of an impending war, there was some reason in this. But it was the reason of desperation, not strategic planning. Graben argued desperately, proved, gave calculations. He shouted that the future battle would require exactly such guns. But he was not heard. His voice, the voice of a seer, was drowned out in the echoing corridors of power. The decision was made. The KV-3 program was shut down. Factories were reoriented to produce and modernize old, proven models. And the only built prototype, known as the KV-220, faced a truly tragic and symbolic fate. Part 4. The Fate of a Lone Warrior. KV-220 for the motherland. The only prototype of the future KV-3, embodied in metal, never received its standard turret with the 107mm ZS6. In the autumn of 41, when the Germans were rushing towards Leningrad, everything that could shoot was thrown into battle. In the prototype, this unique mystery tank was sent to the front. They mounted a standard turret from a serial KV, one with a 76mm F-32 gun on it. It was given a name for the motherland. Imagine the irony of fate. The machine that was supposed to carry the most powerful sword in the world went into battle with a cleaver. Its main advantage, phenomenal armor, remained, but without a powerful gun. It was like a giant with a huge shield but a short dagger. It was included in the 124th Tank Brigade and thrown into the inferno of battles near UST Tosno in December 41. And here the story breaks off. According to one version, the tank was knocked out, most likely by fire from a heavy 150mm German howitzer. The hit caused the ammunition to detonate. The explosion was so powerful that it tore the turret off. The entire crew perished. This is how the Lone Titan ended its journey. It died not as a specialized tank destroyer, which it was destined to become, but as an ordinary, albeit very well-armored, assault gun. Its death is a powerful metaphor for this entire story. The death of a genius in a role alien to it. The death of a future that failed to be recognized. Part 5. The Reckoning. The Tigers are coming. And then the end of 42 came. Near Leningrad, in the swamps near the Fokhov front, they appeared. A long barrel, a massive angular turret, frontal armor impenetrable to most of our guns. Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger. The Tiger. For the crews of the T-34 and KV-1 with their 76mm guns, it was a shock. Their shells simply bounced off the Tiger's frontal projection, leaving only chips. To knock it out, one had to approach dangerously close and hit the side or rear. The price of such an approach was horrifying, dozens of destroyed Soviet tanks for one knocked-out Tiger. And it was here, in the trenches, among burning vehicles and dying comrades, that the moment of truth arrived. That very reckoning for the mistake made a year and a half earlier. Everything Graben had warned about had come true. The enemy had received a heavy, well-armed tank against which the Red Army had no adequate means. They had to frantically, at the cost of incredible efforts, deploy the production of new guns. 85mm anti-aircraft guns were mounted on tanks, creating the Su-85 and T-34-85. Monstrous 152mm howitzers were mounted on heavy self-propelled guns, creating the Beast Killer, the Su-152. But all these were improvisations, hard-won, expensive, belated. Now imagine what would have happened if those same 500 KV-3s had been in the units since the end of 41. The meeting of a Tiger and a KV-3 would have been a shooting duel on equal terms. The 107mm shell of the ZS6 would have penetrated the Tiger's front from a kilometer and beyond, and the Tiger's 88mm gun would have had difficulty with a KV-3's front. The outcome of the duel would have been predetermined. How many lives of our tankers would this have saved? How many offensives would not have foundered in blood? The lessons of history we fail to learn. The story of the KV-3 and ZS6 is not just a boring argument for historians and reenactors. It is a most powerful lesson that, alas, humanity forgets again and again. It is a lesson about the cost of conservatism. The ABDU leadership thought in terms of yesterday. They were preparing for the last war, not the next one. This disease, the victor's disease, the confidence that your current superiority is eternal, has destroyed and continues to destroy empires. It is a lesson about the importance of strategic vision. People like Graben and Kodin were visionaries. They looked beyond the horizon. They needed to be listened to, not silenced. In any field, be it tank building, IT, or economics, it is such people who drive progress. Bureaucracy, incapable of risk, will always be a brake. It is a lesson that a cheap solution today can be incredibly expensive tomorrow. They saved on the development of the KV-3 and got thousands of burned-out T-34s and KV-1s in 42 and 43. The reckoning always comes. Look at modern technologies, at the debates about artificial intelligence, quantum computers, new energy sources. Do you hear the voices of modern Fedorenkos there saying, "Why do we need this? What we have is good enough. Too complicated. Too expensive." I hear them. History repeats itself. That is why it is so important to remember the fate of the KV-3. It is a monument to missed opportunities. It is a reminder that the future must be met fully armed, not with the weapons of the last war. Friends, this topic is incredibly deep and multifaceted. I have outlined only a part of my thoughts. What do you think? Do you agree that the KV-3 could have changed the course of the war? Can you give other examples of such missed chances in history? Let's discuss this in the comments. Your opinion, your knowledge is an invaluable contribution to our common understanding of history. And of course, if this story hooked you, made you think, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Ahead of us are many more such investigations, loud, intriguing topics from the world of history, technology, and more. I promise, it will be interesting. See you soon.